Travis declared at the board meeting that what they needed was fresh ideas, not the old guard, and as he said it, he stared directly at me. My name's Jake Whitman. I'm 45 years old, and until just 10 minutes ago, I was the senior project director at Whitman and Sons Construction in Omaha, Nebraska. The company my grandfather started with nothing but 2 trucks and a wheelbarrow. The business my father turned into something substantial, and the company I helped grow into the 3rd largest commercial builder across 3 states. I didn't blink when Travis spoke those words. Instead, I smiled, leaned back comfortably in my chair, and nodded. Silence immediately fell over the room. Uncle Pete looked down at his hands. Marty from finance started shuffling some papers nervously, and no one dared meet my gaze except for Travis, who kept that irritating, smug smile on his face, like he was doing me some favor. Finally, I broke the silence with, "That's bold good luck." Then I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and walked out without saying another word. They probably expected me to fight back, to shout or create a scene, or to remind everyone I was the one who landed the Meridian Tower project back when we were too small to even handle it, or that I guided us through the crash of 2008 when half our competitors folded, or that I personally managed every key relationship with our top 5 clients. But doing any of that would have played right into Travis's game, letting him appear as the calm, sensible businessman while painting me as the emotional older brother. So instead, I just walked outside to the parking lot. I stood beside my truck for a moment. 22 years in the family business. I started hauling lumber when I was just 23, fresh out of college with a business degree nobody cared about until I used it to triple our profits. I worked 6 days a week through most of my 30s. Missed vacations. Missed my daughter's swim meets, missed my first marriage, all for Whitman and Sons. I pulled out my phone and stared at an email I'd gotten yesterday from Ben Harding at Crestwell Properties, confirming they were going ahead with JW Buildworks, my new company instead of Whitman and Sons, for their $3.2 million office complex. Travis didn't know it yet, but he'd just fired the one thing keeping Whitman and Sons relevant to our biggest clients. He'd been so wrapped up with banks, investors, and expensive strategy consultants that he failed to notice every major project for the last 10 years succeeded because of the relationships I built. And now those relationships were leaving with me. I climbed into my truck and drove away from Whitman and Sons for the last time, with a feeling that Travis's phone would start ringing any minute. I grew up watching my father build Whitman and Sons, coming home with dirt under his nails and pride shining in his eyes as he talked about pouring foundations that would last generations. Travis and I would sit at the kitchen table listening to him recount stories of jobs won and lost, lessons learned, always ending with the same words: "One day, you boys will run this together." Travis is 4 years younger than me and always seemed smarter on paper. Private school, fancy business degree from Northwestern, internships at investment firms in Chicago, while I stayed local at the state university and jumped straight into the family business. My father never said it aloud, but I knew he was grooming Travis for the corner office while I learned the ropes from the ground up. For years, it worked. I handled the projects, the clients, the actual building. Travis managed the money, the growth strategy, the future. We made a good team, or so I thought. The cracks began about 3 years ago. Small at first. Travis started cutting me out of board meetings. "Just financial stuff, Jake. You'd be bored," he said. He brought in consultants without telling me, hired new project managers who reported to him and not me, and started going to client meetings alone, meetings I'd always handled when I asked. He claimed clients specifically requested me, but when I checked later, they'd say, "We asked for you, Jake. Your brother said you were too busy." Last year, when our father announced his retirement, I already knew what was coming. The board meeting where Travis was named CEO was just a formality. I sat there, nodded, shook hands, played along. But no one knew I'd already seen the writing on the wall. For 8 months, I'd been quietly building something on the side. Nothing illegal, nothing breaking my contract. Just conversations with our top clients about what would happen if I left. "You're the only reason we work with Whitman," Ben Harding told me over beers one night. "If you go somewhere else, we go with you, plain and simple." I heard the same from Tanner at Riverview Development, Sophia at Blackstone Commercial, James at Westfield Properties, Victor at Union Square Holdings together. They represented over 60% of our yearly revenue 6 months ago. I filed the paperwork for JW Buildworks LLC, secured a line of credit, found office space, and quietly started talking to our best foremen and project managers. I wasn't stealing anything. I was preparing. There's a difference. Travis was so focused on grabbing the CEO spot that he never saw his foundation crumbling beneath him. The morning after I was fired, I went to the modest office I'd rented on the west side of town. Nothing fancy, just a reception area and 2 private offices above an accountant's firm. The sign on the door still had the previous tenant's name. I hadn't bothered changing it yet. I'd barely settled in when my phone rang. Travis. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again and again. Finally, I answered. "Jake, what the hell is going on?" His voice was that high-pitched, panicked tone he always gets. "Ben Harding just called. Crestwell is pulling all their projects from us. Says they signed with someone else, someone named JW Buildworks. Sounds like you've got a problem." I asked, "Did you do this? Is this your doing?" "I secured my future just like you did," he said. There was silence for a moment. "But these are Whitman and Sons clients. They belong to the company." "No, Travis. They were my clients. I built those relationships. I earned their trust. You thought you were firing a project director yesterday, but really, you fired the only person those clients wanted to work with. This isn't legal. We'll sue." "Go ahead. My lawyer says I did nothing wrong. I didn't solicit clients while employed. I didn't take any proprietary info. I never signed a non-compete. I'm just a builder building somewhere else, and my clients are following me." Another long pause. I could almost hear him calculating, realizing just how badly he'd misread the situation. "Jake, come on, we're brothers. We can work this out." That's when something inside me shifted. Not anger, but something colder, something final. "We were brothers yesterday, too. Didn't stop you from humiliating me in front of the whole board." Travis said it was just business, nothing personal, but I nearly laughed out loud. The family name was on the building, Travis, so everything was personal to me. He begged, admitting he'd made a mistake and asking me to come back so we could work things out together. I looked down at the preliminary plans for the Crestwell project spread across my desk, my project now, and simply replied, "No thanks. I'm fine where I am." He insisted, "Jake, it's not only Crestwell, Riverview, and Blackstone called too. They're all giving the same message." That's when I laughed for real. I get it perfectly. You're reaching out because you're in trouble, not because you want me back. There's a big difference. Then he warned me that Dad would be furious. That stung, but I ignored it. Dad always wanted us to run this company together, but that was Travis's decision to make, not mine. The silence stretched long on the line, and when Travis finally spoke again, his voice sounded smaller, almost defeated. "What do you want? Money? A seat on the board? Just say the word." I told him firmly I didn't want anything from him, that I already had what I needed. He warned that those clients represented over 60% of our annual revenue, and that if we lost them all at once, the bank would call our loans. I replied, "Sounds like a problem for you." Then I hung up. I sat there a long time afterward, staring at the phone, but the satisfaction I expected never came. Instead, a hollow sense of finality settled in. The last connection severed, the final bridge burned. I was entirely on my own. And oddly, that felt right. 3 days after being fired, Uncle Pete came to my temporary office. He'd been Dad's trusted right hand for 3 decades before semi-retiring to a board position. He found me poring over resumes of project managers I was hoping to recruit. "Nice spot," he said, glancing around at the bare walls and rented furniture. "Very startup vibe." "It's just temporary," I said without looking up. "What brings you here, Pete?" He sighed and took a seat opposite me. "The board held an emergency meeting yesterday. Travis filled us in on what you did." "What I did? Interesting way to put it." "He says you stole our biggest clients, and that you'd been plotting this for months." I set the resume down. I spent years building those client relationships, delivered their projects on time, under budget, earned their loyalty. Travis fired me, and they followed. That's the whole story. Uncle Pete leaned in. "The board's talking about suing you, Jake. They're serious." "Let them," I said. "My lawyer says I'm clean." "This isn't just about what's legal. It's about what's right. Your father built that company for both of you." That cut deeper than I wanted to admit. Dad wanted us to lead together. "Travis made a different choice," Uncle Pete said. "A mistake is forgetting a birthday. What Travis did, ambushing you in that board meeting after months of edging you out, that was deliberate strategy, not a slip-up." He rubbed his face wearily. "The company's in real trouble now, Jake. The bank's getting uneasy about financing without those major projects in the books. I know the company's situation. I ran operations for 15 years. Then you understand how this could sink everything your father built, everything you built." Doubt gnawed at me for the first time. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" "Come back, bring those clients back. We can restructure leadership, co-CEOs, maybe you and Travis as equals." For a moment, I considered it. Then I recalled Travis's expression when he fired me, the cold satisfaction in his eyes. "No," I said firmly. Suddenly, Uncle Pete stood, anger flashing. "Damn it, Jake, this is family. Travis should have thought about that before firing you. Your father's devastated. He's even talking about coming out of retirement to fix this." That hit hard. Dad was 72, had heart issues. Doctors told him to take it easy. "Tell Dad to stay home. This isn't his battle." Uncle Pete headed to the door, then paused. "The board meeting's tomorrow at noon. They'll vote on the lawsuit. One more thing. Travis has been calling your subcontractors, warning them that anyone who works with you will be blacklisted from Whitman projects for good." After he left, I sat feeling the walls close in. My phone began ringing nonstop with frantic calls from electricians and plumbers I'd counted on. They couldn't risk losing Whitman's business. They apologized. I'd expected Travis to push back, but not like this. He was cutting me off at the knees. Without reliable subcontractors, I couldn't deliver on client promises by evening. Commitments from nearly every specialty contractor I needed had vanished. My careful plans were unraveling. I'd have to find new subcontractors, likely from out of town, at much higher costs that would eat deeply into my expected profits. Travis hadn't just resisted. He'd found my weak spot and exploited it flawlessly. He wasn't just trying to save Whitman and Sons anymore. He wanted to crush JW Buildworks before it even launched. And I had to admit, he was doing a damn good job. The next morning, I drove to see Dad. I hadn't been to my parents' place since all this started. Their home sat on 5 acres outside town. The first real purchase Dad made when the company took off in the late 80s. He always said a man in construction should own land where he can see the horizon. Mom answered the door, worry tight on her face, but she hugged me tightly and led me to the back porch where Dad sat, gazing over the property. "Jake," he said, without turning. His voice was older than I remembered. "Dad." I sat in the chair beside him. We sat in silence for a while before he finally spoke. "Your brother tells me you're trying to sink the company." "That's not what I'm doing." "Then what do you call it?" I chose my words carefully. "I'm building something new after Travis pushed me out." Dad turned, his eyes sharp despite everything. You couldn't work it out. You two were meant to lead this together. Tell that to Travis. He fired me in front of the whole board. Now you're losing our biggest clients. They chose me. I didn't steal anything. Dad sighed deeply. The situation's worse than you think, son. His tone made me listen more closely. What do you mean? I asked. He looked back to the horizon. The company isn't as solid as people believe the last few years. We've been stretched too thin. How so? We've been profitable every quarter. On paper, yes. But Travis has been borrowing heavily, using future projects as collateral. Those 5 big clients you took, their projects were already counted in those loans. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How much debt are we talking about? Enough that without those projects, the bank might demand immediate repayment. Why would he risk that? Dad's face darkened. He had big plans, expanding, entering new markets. He convinced the board that this was the future. Then he paused and admitted, I should have paid more attention before I retired. Suddenly, everything started to click. The odd behavior Travis showed over the past year, the consultants brought in, the secret meetings. He hadn't just been plotting to edge me aside. He'd been leveraging the company to its limits for his grand vision. Now, those loans were at risk because I'd taken the very clients those loans depended on. Why are you telling me all this? I asked. Because you need to grasp what's really on the line. This isn't just about your brother's pride or your feelings getting hurt if Whitman and Sons collapses. A lot of people suffer. Employees, suppliers, even your mother and me. The weight of that hit me hard. What about the lawsuit? Uncle Pete said the board votes today. Travis is pushing hard for it. And you? What do you think should happen? Dad turned to me with tired eyes. I believe a lawsuit would finish off what's left of this family. Driving back to my office, my thoughts raced. I'd been so consumed by Travis's betrayal that I missed the bigger picture. He hadn't fired me just to claim glory. He fired me because I was the cautious one, the one who would have questioned his risky expansion schemes. Me leaving with those clients didn't just embarrass him. It exposed the fragile house of cards he'd built. No wonder he fought dirty. So what was I going to do? I wanted justice, not ruin. I wanted to build my own path, not destroy all Dad had built. But Travis had put us all in an impossible spot. By the time I reached the office, I knew I had to find a third path, one that protected my new venture without crushing Whitman and Sons entirely. That afternoon, I canceled all meetings and called Ben Harding at Crestwell Properties. Ben, I need a favor, I said when he answered, a big one. After all the times he'd pulled our projects back from the edge, I added, name it. I need you to meet with Travis, hear him out. Maybe consider splitting your projects between my company and Whitman. There was silence. You're asking me to give business back to the company that just fired you and now threatens to sue you. It's complicated, I said. Family usually is. That's a big ask, Jake. I know, but I'm asking anyway. After Ben agreed hesitantly, I called my other 4 major clients. Each conversation was tough. Confusion, some anger they'd chosen to follow me because they trusted me, and now I was sending mixed messages. Still, eventually, all agreed to at least meet with Travis next. I called my lawyer and asked for a proposal draft, needed by morning. Finally, I called Travis directly. I'm surprised you answered, I said. I've been trying to reach you for days. His voice was strained. I know about the loans, Dad told me everything. A long silence. So now you understand how serious this is. I do, and I have a proposal. Meet me tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., my office. Why would I do that? Because I've asked all 5 clients to reconsider working with Whitman. They agreed to meet with you. Another pause. What's the catch? No catch, just be there. I hung up before he could ask more. That night, I barely slept, running the plan over and over, looking for flaws, ways it could fail by morning. My eyes burned, but my mind was clear. Travis showed up at exactly 7 o'clock looking like he hadn't slept either. Wearing one of his expensive suits, his eyes were bloodshot and his usual confidence was gone. "Sit down," I said, motioning to the chair across from my desk. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, standing. "Why help after what I did?" "I'm not doing this for you. It's for Dad, the employees, the family name on the building." He finally sat. "So, what's the proposal?" I slid a document across the desk. JW Buildworks and Whitman and Sons enter a strategic partnership. We split the 5 major clients, 3 for Whitman, 2 for me. That should satisfy the bank and give me enough to build on. He skimmed it, frowning. "It says I have to step down as CEO." "You do. Dad will return temporarily while the board finds a neutral new CEO. And the expansion plans? Put on indefinite hold. The company needs to stabilize financially first." Travis leaned back, studying me. "So you get your revenge after all." "This isn't revenge, it's about saving what can be saved and letting go of the rest. If I refuse, I keep all 5 clients. You default on loans and Whitman likely collapses your call." He stared at the paper, calculating the Travis I knew would never accept, but the man across from me looked beaten, cornered. "The board won't like this," he said finally. "They'd like bankruptcy less." He picked up a pen, hesitated, then signed standing. He looked me in the eye for the first time. I really thought I was doing the right thing for the company. I said nothing. Some things don't deserve answers. After he left, I called Dad and told him what happened. Then I informed the clients of the new arrangement by noon. It was done, not the outcome I'd hoped for. Not a clean win, but something sustainable. Sometimes that's all you can hope for. 6 months later, I stood on the Crestwell office complex construction site. The steel frame rose skyward. Concrete floors poured on the first 3 levels. My project, my company, thriving Whitman and Sons still standing. Dad had returned temporarily, just long enough to steady things. A no-nonsense woman with 30 years in construction management was rebuilding the company's reputation and finances. Travis had left Nebraska for a development firm in Colorado. We hadn't spoken since he signed my proposal. Footsteps approached, and I turned to see Ben Harding with his hard hat in hand. "Looking good, Jake," he said, surveying progress. "On schedule?" "2 weeks ahead," I replied. He nodded approvingly. "Not surprised, that's why we followed you." He hesitated. "Your brother called me last week." That caught me off guard. "Travis? What did he want?" "To apologize, actually. Said firing you was a mistake. Said you're the one who truly understood what made the company tick." I didn't know what to say. He mentioned he was launching a new venture in Denver and asked if I had any connections out there. "Do you?" Ben shrugged casually. "A handful." I passed along a few contacts. He studied me for a moment and asked, "That sit well with you?" I mulled it over. "Yeah, I'm fine with it." We toured the construction site, discussing schedules and delivery dates, typical project talk. But my thoughts kept returning to Travis, to his unexpected apology, and the fact that he too was trying to start fresh, just like me. Maybe that really was the Whitman way, not pulling each other down, but building something lasting and strong. Not forgiveness exactly, but a beginning. Exactly 1 year after my firing, I found myself parked in front of the Whitman and Sons headquarters. I hadn't set foot there since that fateful board meeting. The building looked unchanged, but the company was different. They'd scaled back significantly, pivoting to smaller, more manageable jobs. The grand expansion dreams were gone. Dad was fully retired once more. Diane, the new CEO, was making steady headway repairing the damage Travis had nearly caused. I'd held up my end. JW Buildworks stayed focused on our 2 biggest clients and hadn't poached any more business from Whitman. We'd expanded carefully and sustainably. Now with 38 employees and a strong reputation for quality craftsmanship, I wasn't there for negotiations or meetings. I came because Dad asked me. Said there was something important he wanted me to see inside. A handful of familiar faces nodded my way. Some clearly surprised by my presence, I took the elevator to the executive floor. Dad was waiting in the conference room, the very same where Travis had let me go. But the room had transformed. The flashy, pretentious artwork was replaced with large photos showcasing Whitman and Sons projects over the years. Behind the head of the table hung 3 framed photos. Grandfather standing proudly with his first 2 trucks, Dad breaking ground on their inaugural major commercial project back in '88, and me, 10 years ago, shaking hands with the mayor after wrapping up Meridian Tower ahead of schedule. "That was Diane's idea," Dad said as I absorbed the display. "She said we needed to remember our roots." I nodded, speechless. "You built something good, son," Dad said softly. "Your own venture. I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Dad." We didn't mention Travis. It wasn't necessary. Some fractures can't be mended, but that doesn't stop you from building anew with what remains. I stepped out of Whitman and Sons for the second time, but this time I walked away.